So glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. I'm Julie Ballou, and this is Rape the Podcast. Welcome to the last episode. When I first started this podcast, I had a lot of questions, and I wasn't very optimistic. But I gotta tell you that over the last 12 episodes, I've changed my mind immensely. Before I launch into my final thoughts, let's listen to what I consider to be the answer to this situation. The situation being that people in my community used to have a problem getting any kind of support from the police, from the legal system, access to services, and now there's a place they can go and find all of these things in one building. Victims don't have to tell their story again and again and again. They can go to one place. It's the Greene County Family Justice Center. Here's my talk with Jamie Willis.
I'm glad that we are finally getting together because I've heard so many wonderful things about the Greene County Family Justice Center. And I guess the problem for me is it sounds a little intimidating when it's called the Justice Center. I mean, it gives it a nice, welcoming feel. But can you tell me what the Family Justice Center does?
Sure. The Family Justice Center, first of all, we're not the only Family Justice Center in the United States. The first one was actually started in San Diego in 2002. And they had such great results from this center that they started that other places in the country started owning them too. So there's over 100 in the United States. Some of those are centers that are affiliated with the International Alliance, and we are one of those. But a Family Justice Center, the purpose is really to take the experience of victims in the criminal justice system. As you know, the criminal justice system is very difficult to navigate. It is one of the top complaints of victims is that it's confusing, it's intimidating, and the criminal justice system is focused on the right of the accused. And so victims can really feel unsupported, can feel even attacked, whenever they're having to go through that lengthy, confusing process. And so the purpose of a Family Justice Center is to provide better support to victims, provide better coordination of care between agencies, and also to just provide wraparound support so that maybe the support that they need is help filing a police report. Maybe they don't want to meet with a police officer, or maybe they need emergency shelter, or maybe they need legal services. We offer one safe place that survivors can go to access all of those services that they would need. And so Family Justice Centers serve survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, human trafficking, elder abuse, so many different types of abuse, all in one location. And we provide services from both private organizations. So here in Springfield, that's the Victim Center, Harmony House, Legal Services of Southern Missouri. And then we also provide services from public agencies. So we have law enforcement on site, we have the prosecutor's office on site, but the survivor gets to choose which of those services that they want to access while they're here. And that's all confidential. So if they don't want to meet with law enforcement, that's not a requirement, nor are they pressured to do so when they come in.
Well, at what point in the process do they think to come to you? Are you guys the first point of contact maybe after the situation has happened?
That is the goal, which, every survivor has different feelings on what they feel like they're ready to do after an incident occurs. Our goal is to be the first place that survivors go to then get the assistance that they need from all of those different agencies in one place. So whenever a survivor first comes in, they're assigned what we call a navigator, which is just a community-based advocate. Our advocates work for both the Victim Center and Harmony House, and those advocates become their point of contact, their emotional support person that helps connect them to all those services. So maybe the first time that they come in, they just want to know about what their options are. Like, what happens if I report this crime? What happens if I don't? what services are available. Here in Springfield, one thing that's unique about our community is that the majority of adult sexual assaults are perpetrated by someone that the victim knows. And so, stranger cases are rare here in Greene County, but that just means that those survivors need a lot of the same services that domestic abuse survivors need. Like they might need an ex parte order of protection. They might need assistance with like landlord-tenant issues if maybe they live with their abuser and they're trying to get off that lease. And so when they come in here, we can share with them what all of those different resources are. And then when they decide, what they want to do, we can help walk them through that process. So that advocate stays with them through that whole time.
Do you guys give out legal advice, or do you just refer it to somebody who can give out legal advice?
So we have a team from Legal Services of Southern Missouri here on site. We have 3 attorneys, a paralegal, and a social worker. So we can provide legal advice. We can provide representation for orders of protection. If one needs that help, then they can apply here.
Wow, that sounds important. From what I understand, that's one of the biggest hang-ups is, not being able to afford to even consult with an attorney in a lot of cases.
And a lot of times that's the first step, is just needing to talk to an attorney about what's possible and what you need, because navigating that alone, both the criminal and civil justice systems are so complex, even for those of us that work in that field. Our advocates learn a lot from working with attorneys, and our attorneys learn a lot from working with law enforcement. And so since we have this team of all different types of professionals, all with the same goal of better supporting victims, we also learn a lot from those professionals around us about how to best provide services. Other family justice centers across the nation that have been open much longer than us have seen like really amazing results as far as increased victim safety, survivors saying that they feel more supported, but also like decreased domestic violence homicides. San Diego started their center in 2002, like I said, and their domestic homicide rate has now dropped by 95% after the Family Justice Center opened. Really the goal is, especially here in Greene County, where domestic violence is such a big issue in our community, is, how do we better support survivors so that they can make those tough choices about what they're going to do next without there being barriers to getting help. Because, a survivor should be able to make whatever choice they want to make, but the fact that there's so many barriers to getting the help that they need is not okay and not fair. So we do our best to break those barriers down so that then they can really have all of the different choices and decide what they think is best for them at that point in time.
Yeah, that's great. How do you think you'll be able to tell if what you guys are doing is making a difference? How are you tracking results?
So long term, we've been open for 2 years. October 1st was our 2-year anniversary. And so long term, we'll of course look at crime rate and look at number of domestic violence incidences, number of calls for service. We also, of course, track how many survivors we're serving. But short term, because all of those things require a lot of longitudinal data, what we're looking at now are what survivors say after they come to the Family Justice Center. And so we provide a survey to everyone that comes in. We have an over 99% satisfaction rate with our services. And then we provide a space for survivors to write, like, what are we not capturing with this survey? What would you like to add? Or what's some feedback for our management team? And overwhelmingly, they say things like, I wish I would have known about this before. I would have done this sooner if I knew that this was available. Or, I really don't think I could have done this without you all. So that really helps us feel like we're doing a good job. And of course, if we ever receive feedback that said, this isn't really conducive to helping us, then of course we would adjust things. One of those things is our first location was inside of the Greene County Courthouse. That's because that space was given to us for free while we first opened the center. But, we had survivors say, like, the courthouse is not a convenient place. It's not a welcoming environment. And so we knew moving in that wasn't going to be where we were going to stay. And so we just moved into our new facility in June of this year, and it's a standalone 8,000 square foot facility that used to be, it's a former elementary school. So now we have a much more welcoming environment, and that was due to survivor feedback.
And where is this located?
We are located on the corner of Pythian and Fremont, or that's not right. Oh, what is that street? We're located at 1418 East Pythian.
Okay.
And yes, in the former Teft Elementary School.
Okay. How close is that to the Haunted Mansion?
We're right across the street. I can see it outside of my office window.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I know about Pythian Street. So,
yes, we're right across the street.
So this is your building, and you haven't been there for very long. You said you moved in when?
On June 1st. So we've been here for about 5 months.
Well, that is just really great information to know, because I can just see somebody, maybe driving around in their car, trying to figure out what they're going to do. They've just been raped or sexually assaulted in some way, and maybe they're trying to get information from this podcast, and we say it's on Pythian Street, across the street from the Haunted Mansion, and they go straight to you. I mean, that makes me cry thinking about that possibility. But what can we do as a community to get the word out about you? Because how do you get out into the community? How do you get your information out there?
We serve on a lot of different local task force and coalitions. So we serve on the sexual assault response team. We are very closely linked with the SANE sexual assault nurse programs at both Cox and Mercy. So they refer clients to us a lot. We work very closely with law enforcement, of course. And so law enforcement a lot of times will refer people to us if they need assistance. And also word of mouth. There was a recent case where another victim that she had, confided in whenever this had occurred, because she knew that she'd had a similar experience. So, people come to us all different ways. We usually serve typically around 200 to 250 visitors per month. So I do feel like when people need that help, that they're finding us. And so, some of our other partner agencies, like the Victim Center, will sometimes refer survivors to us as well.
Tell them to hit you up first, and then maybe they'll circle back around to the Victim Center. I imagine. Okay.
Yeah, and all of our agencies, like for example, the Victim Center offers trauma-informed counseling to any victim of crime. They do have a short wait list because, resources never match the need. A lot of times what people do is they'll come to the Family Justice Center, get that help that they need, learn about different services. We can sign them up here if they're interested in counseling at the Victim Center. And then we also have a crisis counselor on staff who works borough, who provides free of charge crisis counseling so that we can have a little bit of a overlap there to help them start processing those things before they move to long-term counseling at the Victim Center.
So what do you guys need? Do you need volunteers? Do you need money? What can we do to help?
Well, I think every nonprofit in the country probably wants more money, of course. Money is definitely tied to the number of services that we are able to provide. So if someone wanted to make a monetary donation, they could make a donation to any of our partner agencies or to the Family Justice Center directly. We have a fund at Community Foundation of the Ozarks. Another thing that's really, really helpful for those that maybe aren't able to give monetarily is to host a drive for us. So maybe at your church, just gathering like bleach wipes, which we are going through very quickly during COVID, or we keep snacks on site because a lot of times when survivors come in, they haven't eaten and they're hungry. So we keep snacks, we keep small meals for them and their children. So that's always a good thing to donate. We keep like bras and panties because sometimes people just need a new clean outfit to wear. So any type of donation, if you go to our website, there's a tab that says Help Us. and that talks about any volunteer opportunities, has our Amazon wish list, which you can just automatically purchase and it gets shipped to us, and then other information about how you can help us meet our mission.
Okay. Well, I will share all of that information too and tell everybody that I know that you guys exist. And I'm sorry that I didn't get it. But you guys, when I think the justice part of it is what throws me off, because it feels like this is where the trials are going to happen or something. This is where you're going to eventually end up, and sorry to say, possibly be very sadly disappointed with the outcome. But how do you work with that part of the process too? I mean, you've got the attorneys that you work with, but I mean, how are we changing the justice in this issue?
There were a couple things I wanted to touch on there. First, the name Family Justice Center, you're right, can sometimes seem a little intimidating. And actually, surprisingly to me, this name was actually created by survivors. And so a group of survivors came up with the name. But I agree, we've also received feedback that it seems a little intimidating and seems institutional, which is not the goal, of course. But as far as the criminal justice system or the criminal justice process, we have prosecutors on site from the Greene County Prosecutor's Office, and they do all of the charging decisions here at the Family Justice Center. So one thing that I think is helpful, one thing that we noticed at the very beginning is that a survivor of, domestic violence, sexual assault would come in and say, like, I don't even know what's happening with my criminal case, that no one's reached out to me. And so we would go to the prosecutor's office, one of the advocates would, and say, hey, what's happening with this case? And they would say, like, oh, we tried to get a hold of that victim and didn't have correct contact information, and so we haven't been able to reach them. And so sometimes it's just as simple as they have information because they haven't been able to get in contact with them. Mm-hmm. Other times it's that maybe the follow-up investigation is taking too long, like the prosecutor's office has reached out to law enforcement to do a follow-up, and law enforcement is so far behind that they haven't made it there yet. That happens too. But whenever you have multiple agencies holding each other accountable, things just move a little bit quicker, both with our advocates understanding the criminal justice system very intimately because they work with people within that system every day, but also just having that relationship with prosecutors. I mean, I'll tell you, if you're a survivor and you feel like the prosecutor's not handling your case correctly, you need to call the prosecutor's office and tell them that you want your case to be reviewed. They will review it if you ask them to. But it's really hard to advocate for yourself whenever you're just barely making it. Yeah. And so having someone help you do that can sometimes make the difference between I'm not physically able to do that because I'm just trying to make it, and I could do it if I had someone's help. So coming here and having an advocate that does that conversation for you and says, like, hey, we have this survivor here and they're really concerned about what's happening, and figures out that information and figures out next steps for them. And then also, after you have that information, after you leave, maybe you don't exactly remember every step of what needs to happen. You can call and say, hey, I was really overwhelmed when all of that was going on. Can you recap that for me? What do I need to do? And to have someone to kind of be that holder of information for you is really a game changer whenever you're dealing with such heavy stuff.
For sure. Are you able to help people from other counties?
We are. It's a little bit different as far as what we can do with other counties. So all of our nonprofit agencies, so the Victim Center, Harmony House, Legal Services, Burl, they can provide services to anyone in Missouri. For like law enforcement, the prosecutor's office, children's division, those government agencies that we have on site that partner with us. Obviously, Springfield Police Department doesn't investigate crimes in Webster County or any other county, but they can help make that connection. And so sometimes they will either help contact that law enforcement agency to say, we have someone here that needs assistance, and they can help coordinate that for them. We can also provide transportation if someone, like a crime happened somewhere else, and our advocates can still help with that support going through that process. If someone needs an ex parte in another county, we can print off the forms for that county and help them fill them out. And then that way, all they have to do is submit them. So we can still do a lot for people that don't reside in Greene County.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so helpful. Well, is there anything else that you would like to message out to the world about this?
I would just say that if you find yourself in the situation where you've been a victim of a, violent crime, it's okay to not know what to do. We're not primed with knowing what to do because no one expects for that to happen to them. And so it's okay to reach out and just get information. And so if you call the Family Justice Center and say, hey, I just want to know what would happen in this situation, we're happy to help walk you through that. If you need help safety planning, we're ready to help at any point in your process, even if that is helping you safety plan to stay in that relationship. We're happy to do that. We're happy to meet you wherever you are. So, I would just say if you are questioning whether you want to reach out for help, just know that we're here and all of our services are free, confidential, and non-judgmental.
Amazing.
So our number is 417-874-2600.
Okay.
And then you can also visit our website at greenecountyfamilyjusticecenter.org, or you can reach out on Facebook as well. We have a Facebook site that people can check out more information at too.
Great. Well, thank you, Jamie, so much for your time and explaining everything to me. And I feel like this might be the ending to my podcast because you guys are taking care of it. You're all
wow, that is such an honor.
Well, I hope so anyway. I may check back in a couple of years or something just to see where everything's at, see what an impact everything that Springfield's been doing has made. I can see this is even more positive than I thought it would be. So anyway.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you. And let me know if I can ever do anything to help in return.
I've met some incredible people along this journey. I've learned some amazing things to change my life. Thanks to Brene Brown for uncovering shame for me. Mr. Vanderkolk for revealing how the shame of trauma lives in my body. It's really opened my eyes to how different everyone reacts to trauma. Now that I've looked inward and learned how to relax my nervous system, and meditation has really helped as well, it's changed my life. I regret not getting to talk to anyone from the local faith community or from the universities around town. And Fort Leonard Wood isn't too far from here, so I've really been following how the special forces are handling rape at this time. They've made sweeping changes, but they had to. Let's face it. Things were getting pretty nasty. But they've admitted they have a problem. And while they may not be fixing it fast enough, or maybe even in the right way, they're trying. Another interview I wished I could have gotten was the Me Too Springfield ladies. I asked them multiple times. I started to feel like a stalker, and I got nowhere with them. No commitment to talk to me on the podcast. But you know what? That's what kind of got my paranoia going. I wondered, what are they hiding? And then because Chief Williams was having a hard time committing to an interview, I really started to go crazy with my imagination. When I first started this podcast, people kind of warned me, don't piss off the police. Well, now that I think about it, I feel like that may be why Me Too Springfield didn't want to participate in the long run. They just really have to be careful what they say. But I feel like that's everyone. Everyone has to be careful what is said. You don't want to piss off the wrong people. You don't want to piss off the people who can help you. I feel like the final missing piece of this podcast was talking with anyone from the judicial system. To be honest, I was a little intimidated to even reach out to a judge. There's one in particular in town that Me Too Springfield has been incredibly critical of for his very lame sentences. And I know that problem is everywhere. That's the thing about Springfield, Missouri. This town is everywhere America. So aside from the interviews that I missed, I had some really great guests. One of my former guests became my first client for my podcast editing business that I just started called Chick Edits. And she's hosting her own podcast now called Look at Us Now. And it's about creatives who are making it in the world of art. You should listen to it. Available everywhere. Another great guest that I had, she's kept me informed as she went back to the prosecutors of a case from decades ago, and she's getting a great response from them now. Although there were a few hiccups in the beginning. The way she has jumped through all of the hoops in order to find her peace is also helping to protect future victims. But there are less and less hoops for sexual assault victims to have to jump through as every year passes. Everyone from law enforcement to prosecutors to regular old people are making it easier for victims to track rape kits, talk to an attorney, get their calls returned, not have to go back to court to restart a protection order when an abuser gets out of jail, keep their new address after leaving abusers private. We're opening up the conversation about consent, not only in schools, but also in workplaces. We have city leaders actively seeking grants to pay for educating the community and protecting victims, and cleaning the backlog of rape kits. This is a lot of work. It might take some time to see the real results, but I'd say we're off to a great start. Finally, what I want to say is love yourself because you know you're a good person. Know your worth. If you're lonely, call, reach out, get over your stubborn desire to ignore your emotions. You're not a burden. But still, people are dealing with what society projects on them. So we have to look even further inside to change society to support us instead of the typical 1900s criticisms like, you wore that dress, you went home with him, you returned eye contact with him, you led him on. More important in this day and age to ask yourself if your experiences have made you a better human being. How can you find hope for change? Talk to other victims, and you're going to learn from them, and then you're going to see yourself as a strong person, and nothing can stop you after that. I'm not sure I can completely end this podcast. I wouldn't be too surprised if I come up with a few bonus episodes. There's a few conversations that I didn't get to air. I'll be definitely following up with these city leaders, and I might even get involved. I definitely want to do some advocating of my own, use this knowledge that I've learned from this podcast to help other people physically, in person, that kind of thing, back when we're someday in person with each other again. Boy, this is hard to say goodbye, but it's not goodbye.